It was a quiet night at the 24-hour diner. The place was mostly empty, with only a few regulars sitting in their usual spots. I was the only waitress on duty. My name is Anna, and I've worked at this diner for over 3 years. Nights are usually slow and quiet, and I enjoy the calm. The clock on the wall showed 3 a.m. when the door opened. A man walked in, wearing a long coat. He looked cold and tired. He didn't say much, just nodded at me and walked to the corner booth. He sat down and stared out the window. I walked over to him and asked what he wanted. "Just a coffee," he said quietly. I brought him a cup of coffee and set it on the table in front of him. He didn't even look at it, just kept staring out the window. At first I thought he was just deep in thought. People come to diners for all kinds of reasons, and some just need a place to sit and think. But as the minutes passed, I noticed he didn't move at all. He didn't drink his coffee, didn't shift in his seat, nothing. After about half an hour, I started to feel uneasy. It was like he wasn't really there, just a statue in the corner. I decided to go over and check on him. Maybe he needed something else, or maybe he wasn't feeling well. "Sir, is everything okay?" I asked, walking up to his table. There was no response. I reached out and touched his shoulder, but there was no one there. The seat was empty, and the coffee cup was still full. My heart started to race. I looked around the diner, but there was no sign of him. It was like he had just vanished into thin air. I went back behind the counter and tried to calm down. Maybe he had slipped out when I wasn't looking, though it seemed impossible. The door makes a loud noise when it opens, and I hadn't heard it. I decided to put it out of my mind and focus on my work, but the feeling of unease stayed with me for the rest of the night. The next day, just as my shift was ending, 2 police officers walked into the diner. They showed me a picture of a man and asked if I had seen him. My heart sank when I saw the photo. It was the man from last night, the one who had disappeared. "Yes, he was here last night," I said. "He came in around 3 a.m., but then he just vanished." The officers exchanged a glance. "He's been missing for over a week," one of them said. "His family is very worried. This is the first lead we've had in days." I told them everything that had happened, how he had ordered a coffee but never drank it, how he had just stared out the window and then disappeared. They thanked me and left, but I could tell they were as puzzled as I was. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the man in the long coat. Where had he gone? Why had he come to the diner? I felt a chill every time I thought about how he had just vanished. I hoped the police would find him and that he was okay. A few nights later, something strange happened. It was around the same time, 3 a.m., when the door opened again. I looked up, expecting another regular or maybe a truck driver passing through. But it was him, the man in the long coat. He walked to the same corner booth and sat down. I felt a chill run down my spine. I walked over to him, trying to stay calm. "Coffee?" I asked, my voice shaking a little. He nodded without looking at me. I brought him a cup and set it down. He did the same thing as before, just stared out the window without touching his drink. I watched him for a while, but then I had to attend to other customers. When I looked back, he was gone again. The coffee cup was still full. This time I didn't feel scared. I felt sad. Something was deeply wrong, and I didn't know how to help. The next day, the police came back. They looked tired and frustrated. I told them what had happened, how he had come back and vanished again. They took notes and thanked me, but I could see they were losing hope. I still think about that man sometimes. I wonder if he was a ghost, trapped in some kind of loop, or if something even stranger was happening. The diner is still quiet most nights, but now, every time the door opens at 3 a.m., I feel a mix of fear and hope. Maybe one day, he'll come back for the last time, and we'll finally learn the truth about what happened to him.
Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to a channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share the stories with your friends and family. Thanks.
My name is Jordan, and after my divorce, I decided to take a job working the night shift at a gas station to make ends meet. It was usually quiet, with only the occasional customer stopping by to fill up their tank. I found the solitude somewhat comforting, a chance to clear my head and figure out my next steps. But one night, things took a terrifying turn. It was around 2 a.m. when a car pulled up to the pump. A man got out, his face hidden under a hood. He walked into the store and stared at me for a moment before asking for a pack of cigarettes. I handed them over, but as the man reached for his wallet, I noticed something odd. His hands were covered in blood. Before I could react, the man pulled out a knife and lunged at me. I managed to dodge and ran to the back of the store, locking the door behind me. My heart was pounding in my chest as I heard the man pounding on the door, shouting obscenities. I called the police, my hands shaking as I dialed. When they arrived, the man was gone. They found blood smeared on the counters and the floor, but no sign of the attacker. I was shaken but tried to put it behind me. The officers suggested it might have been a prank, but I knew better. There was something deeply unsettling about that man. A few nights later, I was working another night shift. It had been a quiet evening, and I was starting to feel a bit more relaxed. But then, I saw the same car pull up to the pump. My heart sank. The man got out and walked into the store, his hood still hiding his face. This time, I didn't wait. I grabbed a baseball bat from behind the counter and confronted the man. "Get out of here!" I shouted, my voice trembling. The man pulled out the knife again, but I was ready. I swung the bat and knocked the knife out of his hand. The man stumbled back, his hood falling off. I gasped when I saw his face. It was my own reflection, twisted and distorted. The man let out a chilling laugh before disappearing into thin air. I was left standing alone in the store, clutching the bat. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. My mind raced with questions. How could this be happening? Was I losing my mind? I never worked the night shift again, but I could never forget the face of my attacker, a face that was my own. I decided to do some digging into the history of the gas station, hoping to find some explanation for the bizarre events. I found out that years ago, a young woman named Sarah had worked the night shift at this very gas station. She had been attacked one night by a man with a knife and had managed to fend him off, but the experience had left her traumatized. She had quit her job and moved away, never to be heard from again. I felt a chill run down my spine. Could Sarah's attacker have been the same man who had come after me? Or was there something even more sinister at play? I couldn't shake the feeling that the man I had seen was more than just a figment of my imagination. I started having nightmares. Every night, I would see the man with my face, laughing and taunting me. I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing. I knew I had to find a way to make it stop. One night, I decided to return to the gas station. It was a foolish decision, but I was desperate for answers. I armed myself with a baseball bat and a flashlight, determined to confront whatever was haunting me. As I walked through the empty store, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. The silence was oppressive, and I could hear my own breathing, shallow and rapid. I made my way to the back of the store, where I had locked myself in during the attack. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and I heard the whisper of footsteps behind me. I turned around, and there he was, the man with my face standing in the doorway. His eyes were filled with malice, and his twisted smile sent a shiver down my spine. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He didn't answer, just laughed that chilling laugh. I raised the bat, ready to defend myself, but he vanished into thin air. I was left standing alone in the dark, my heart pounding. I realized then that this was not something I could fight with a bat. This was something beyond my understanding, something that had latched onto me and wouldn't let go. I quit my job at the gas station the next day. I moved to a different town, hoping to escape whatever it was that had haunted me. But no matter where I go, I can never forget that night. The face of my attacker, a face that was my own, will haunt me forever. When I first moved into the old apartment building, I was excited. The place had a lot of character, with its creaky wooden floors and high ceilings. It felt like it had a history, and I loved that. My new apartment was cozy, and I quickly settled in. The landlord, Mr. Thompson, seemed nice but strict. He had only one rule: never go into the basement. At first, I didn't think much of it. I had no reason to go down there. But after a few weeks, I started hearing strange noises at night. It sounded like faint whispers and soft footsteps coming from below. It was eerie, but I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just the old building settling, or maybe pipes making noise. One night I couldn't take it anymore. The noises were louder than usual, and curiosity got the better of me. I decided to see what was going on in the basement. I knew Mr. Thompson had warned me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was down there. I grabbed a flashlight and quietly made my way down the stairs. The basement door was old and heavy, with a rusty handle. I hesitated for a moment, but then I opened it and stepped inside. The air was cold and musty, and I could see cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. As I walked further in, I noticed a door that seemed out of place. It was smaller than the others and looked much older. My heart was pounding, but I pushed the door open. Inside, I found a small dark room. The flashlight beam revealed an old mattress on the floor, a rusty table, and some old photos scattered around. I picked up one of the photos and saw a family standing in front of the building. They looked happy, but the picture was faded and worn. I looked at a few more photos and realized they were all of previous tenants. Some of them looked familiar. I had seen their faces in the building's lobby, in old group photos hanging on the walls. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I froze, too scared to move. Slowly, I turned around, but there was no one there. My heart was racing, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I backed out of the room, my flashlight shaking in my hand. I turned and ran, not stopping until I was back in my apartment. I locked the door behind me and tried to calm down. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I sat on my bed, thinking about the cold hand and the photos. Who were those people? And why was that room hidden away? The next morning, I decided to check the basement again, to make sure I hadn't imagined it all. I went downstairs, but when I reached the bottom, I couldn't find the door. It was gone as if it had never existed. I searched the whole basement, but there was no sign of the room I had seen the night before. Confused and scared, I went to see Mr. Thompson. I told him about the noises, the hidden room, and the photos. He listened quietly, then shook his head. "I warned you to stay away from the basement," he said. "That room hasn't existed for years. It was sealed off after incidents with some of the tenants." "What incidents?" I asked, feeling a chill. "There were disappearances," he said, his voice low. "People went missing, and the police never found out what happened. The room you described was sealed off to prevent more trouble." I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I was in there last night. I saw the photos, felt someone touch me. Mr. Thompson looked at me with a serious expression. "You shouldn't have gone down there. Some things are better left alone. Stay out of the basement for your own safety." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and regret. I couldn't explain what had happened, but I knew I had to listen to Mr. Thompson's warning. That night, and every night after, I stayed far away from the basement. The noises eventually stopped, but I could never shake the feeling that something was still down there, watching and waiting. Living in that old apartment building never felt the same. I was always on edge, always listening for the slightest sound. I hoped I would never encounter whatever was in that hidden room again. The mystery of the basement and the vanished door remained unsolved, a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left buried. Josh and his friends loved playing at the old playground after dark. It was their favorite spot, filled with memories of fun and laughter. We called ourselves the Night Owls because we loved staying up late and having adventures. The playground was old, with rusty swings and a creaky merry-go-round, but it was our place. One night, we decided to test our bravery by playing hide-and-seek. It was a clear, cool night, and the moon was bright, perfect for a game. We all gathered at the big oak tree in the middle of the playground. "All right, I'll count first," said Alex, my best friend. He covered his eyes and started counting loudly. 1, 2, 3. I ran towards the swings, thinking it would be a good hiding spot. I crouched down behind one of the swing sets, trying to make myself as small as possible. I could hear the others laughing and whispering as they found their hiding places. My heart was racing with excitement. Then I saw her. Near the slide, there was a little girl in a white dress. She looked out of place, standing so still. I thought she might be one of the neighborhood kids we didn't know, so I called out to her. "Hey, are you playing with us?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, staring at the ground. Something about her made me feel uneasy, but I couldn't figure out why. I decided to get a closer look. As I got closer to her, she suddenly vanished into thin air. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. I froze, my mind racing to understand what I had just seen. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Josh, found you!" Alex shouted, making me jump. He had finished counting and found my hiding spot. "Why do you look so scared?" I saw a girl," I stammered. "She was right there, by the slide, and then she just disappeared." Alex looked at me, his expression changing from amusement to concern. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, I swear," I said, feeling a bit embarrassed. She was wearing a white dress. The others gathered around, curious about what was going on. I told them what I had seen, and their faces turned serious. "You know, I've heard stories about this playground," said Mia, one of our friends. "My grandma told me a girl died here a long time ago. They say her spirit still haunts the place." The air around us seemed to get colder. We all huddled together, suddenly feeling very exposed in the open playground. "I think we should go home," Alex said quietly. Everyone nodded in agreement. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the girl in the white dress. Who was she, and why was she still here? The thought of her haunted me, and I knew I had to find out more. The next day, I went to the local library. I searched through old newspapers and finally found an article about the playground. Many years ago, a little girl named Emily had died in an accident on the slide. She was playing alone, and no one knew exactly what happened. The article mentioned that some people believed her spirit still lingered there. I felt a mix of sadness and fear. Emily was the girl I had seen. Her spirit was still at the playground, alone and lost. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know how. That night, I gathered my friends again. I told them what I had found out about Emily. We decided to go back to the playground, but this time with a different purpose. We wanted to let Emily know she wasn't alone. We brought a small toy, a teddy bear, and a candle. We placed them near the slide where I had seen her. We lit the candle and stood in a circle, holding hands. "Emily, we know you're here," I said softly. "We're sorry for what happened to you. We want you to know that you're not alone anymore." The wind seemed to whisper through the trees, and the candle flickered. For a moment, I thought I saw a shadow near the slide, but it quickly disappeared. We stayed there for a while, hoping Emily could feel our presence. After that night, we never saw the girl in the white dress again. The playground felt different, lighter somehow. We continued to play there, but we always remembered Emily. She became a part of our night owl's adventures, a silent friend who we hoped had found some peace. And every time we saw a white dress or heard the wind whisper, we thought of her and hoped she was finally at rest.